and welcome to the Author Roundup, a special segment of the Book Connection Show where we meet up and coming indie authors and talk to them about their recently released books. Hello, I'm Jenny, your host for the episode of the Author Roundup. Today we're looking into a truly inspiring book that shares how one special friendship can spark personal growth, deepen our relationships, and bring us closer to Christ. It reminds us that every relationship has the potential to transform our lives when we allow God to work through them. Craig E. Lipscomb, a devoted Christian, father, and author from Southern California, has had his life shaped by faith, family, and the people who have walked alongside him. He served briefly in the military, faced life's challenges, and found his way back to the Lord. Join me in welcoming the author of Knowing Merrilee, My Life with a Princess, Craig E. Lipscomb. Hi, Craig. It's great to have you on the show.
Hi, Jenny. Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Let's dive right into the questions. So, knowing Mary Lee, what inspired you to write your book? And when did you realize that this story just needed to be shared to the world?
That's a great question, Jenny. As I'm sure you would expect, um, the reason that I started writing this book was because of my friend Merrilee. I mean, that's that's definitely the inspiration for this. And what happened was when we had a meeting, I was new to California and I didn't really know anybody, didn't have a whole lot of friends, but I was looking for work and trying to support myself. And a lot of the gurus at that time socially that I was connected to were talking about success in business and where to invest your money for real estate. This is back in 2014, 2015. So there were all these opportunities that were everywhere promising, success and lots of money and all of these things. And it was like chasing that here in California in the land of opportunity was like, wow, like I want all of those things. But what I was missing was how do I form the relationships in order to able to be connected to those types of things? And also what's important, right? Is it the house? Is it the car? Is it living in Beverly Hills? Is it Santa Monica? Or is it the people that we're meeting every day and the people that we're working alongside, while we're on that path to get to those things? So when I met Merrilee, I had this very real moment of self-awareness where I was on my way chasing, the house, the car, the real estate investments and all these other things. And she was like, "But who are you?" And I was like, that's a really good question. Like, I hope I'm somebody likable. I hope I'm somebody that, you want to do business with because at the time I was selling search engine optimization. And she was like, "Well, I'm interested in having my brand marketed and I'm interested in having my show marketed, but my show is about people. How do you relate to people?" And I was like, "Well, let's ask them." And then as we went through a series of asking different people their opinions of how they felt about me, they were all like, "He's a great salesman. He's really good at, managing people. He's really good at selling a product. He's really good at this and really good at that." But then when it came to like hanging out, like I didn't have a whole lot of friends. And I didn't have a whole lot of people that I could, relate to. And I didn't have any real ability to navigate conflict. So she was like, "Well, those are things that kind of affect your whole life. Like, how do you feel about fixing that?" And I was like, "Huh, let's find out."
I see. So, it started off as like a business opportunity since you were
Right.
trying to sell something to Mary Lee, right? But can
hmm
you describe, or maybe that was the first moment when you realized that Mary Lee would change your life? So, this is someone I met, a woman that I met, and then I know that she will have a big impact in my life. Tell us about that time.
Absolutely. So basically, when I got through the sale and I realized that there was way more to Merrilee than just this product that I was trying to pitch, she was like, she asked me a question that I'll never forget. She said, "How's your heart health?" And at the time, all I did was work and I was busy. So my life was basically working fast food because I was always on my way to some meeting or some, job interview or some a character interview where people were telling me about these real estate investments or they were telling me about an MLM or they were telling me about, some new product they were about to launch. I was always in the midst of these business conversations of people trying to present something to sustain themselves basically. So when she asked me about my heart health, there was a gear that switched from, what my idea of success was to how I'm actually living my life. And then when she asked me about my heart health and my answer was I don't care about my heart health. Like, who knows what their heart health is? Like, people don't walk around with a heart monitor, kind of thing. And I just kind of joked about that. And she was like, "Oh, really? Like, you don't care about your heart? Because you kind of need that to live." And I was like, yeah, I guess you're kind of right. Maybe I should check this out. So that realization, that shift from focusing on the sell and what I could do to promote her business to focusing on my heart health. What is a heart monitor? What is the BMI? I think it was a body mass index, to determine how like I was actually living, like my health was going was a huge shift. And the fact that this stranger cared more about that than I did was a very real moment for me. It was like, wait, she cares about, how long I'm going to be alive. She cares about whether or not I'm going to be around to be a good father. Like, these are way more important things than the next big product. So when I met her face to face after that conversation, and she was like, well, here's how where you fall on the heart health. You probably need to start thinking about eating vegetables because if all you eat is all this stuff with calories in it, you're going to clog your arteries and that could be a huge health risk. Like that's how you have heart attacks and strokes and all these other things. And I mean, you hear those things, but in the midst of, the everyday business dealings, it's not what the person thinks about typically that's working on that next pitch or that next product, because you're always on the go and your eating choices between this meeting and the next are usually McDonald's, Taco Bell, whatever happens to be between, the two businesses. And a lot of times, well, for me, I was in areas that I didn't know to begin with. So it's not like I had regular places that I knew I could go and make healthy choices except the grocery store. And nobody has time to wait in a grocery store when you've got one meeting at 1 o'clock and the next one at 1:25. So that was a very real moment for me. And then just having her leap from that moment to caring about how I was living every day and what I was actually, or how I was handling all of my conversations was huge. I'd never had a friend like that. That was actually trying to help me have my conversations with the people that I cared about better. So, yeah, it was a real impact. And then her teaching on the game shows all of these different aspects that come across in conversation with the people that we want to show our love to, that we want to show and express our care for. And a lot of times, one of the things that I realized after, dealing with her as a friend and going places with her, meeting people that she was associated with versus the people I was associated with, was there are a lot of people out there that think they're caring for the people that they love in their lives that make a misstep in the game. And every time they make a misstep, they wind up hurting somebody that they care about. And typically, that's not their intention. So, like, for instance, you take the average married couple, right? The average married couple obviously got married because they love each other, but they have all these conversations between the time that they say I do and the time that they go to meet the Lord that typically don't go the way they want them to. And that's the reason why there's disappointments. That's the reason why there's regrets. That's the reasons why people's feelings get hurt. But if you took them at that moment at the altar and said, if you make a commitment today to follow these instructions and these instructions alone, and you will never hurt the feelings of the person that you're marrying today. How many people would sign up for that? Everybody, right? Because
Yes.
we don't fall in love or decide that we're going to get married with the intention of hurting the person that we love.
Right.
And, it's the same with our children as parents. We are given these beautiful gifts when they enter the world, and God gives us charge over them for their entire lives. And we want to raise them, we want them to do great things. But typically, we don't think about like whether or not we're hurting them, whether or not we're causing trauma for them, whether or not we're going to be a reason that they have to go to therapy. And if that moment that you're holding your child, which I'm a father of three, so this is experience I'm talking with, I remember holding each one of my children and promising them with all my heart that I was going to do my best under God's jurisdiction as their father to try and be the best father I could be. And I can literally tell you every single time from that moment that I made that promise to now that I've hurt their feelings, I'm sorry for. I'm so sorry for. So having somebody reach into my life and say, hey, you know what? You don't have to do that. You're trying to raise these people that you love and you want to cherish and adore them and have them love and respect you and you don't want to misstep with them. Here's how you do that. And I was like, are you serious? Like, yes, who wouldn't want that?
Mhm.
So that's really what inspired me to write this book because there's a lot of insight through the experiences that I've had in life that will show people don't do that.
Yeah. So Mary Lee really did have a very huge impact in your life. And,
Hmm.
it's all in the book. And I can see that um, you don't get that often with people you meet, right? So she really is very special to you. Now, earlier, Craig, you described a little bit how you were before meeting Mary Lee, right?
Hmm.
Like you don't really care about your health and all that. Um, you didn't care about the other stuff that she started pointing out. Okay.
Hmm.
How do you think would people around you have described you before you met Mary Lee?
That's a really good question. So I think a lot of people would have described me as a nice guy.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was nice most of the time, unless I was in a sales conversation. And then I would be nice up to the point where the sale was either not going well or something like that. And then it was kind of like, as a salesman, we're all trained to be a little bit more aggressive in
Right.
order to get the sale. But what I didn't like about that, and what I didn't like about, my experience with that, was that when you're selling a product, you're selling something that a lot of people need. Like, for instance, a car. Used car salesmen have the worst reputation out of the entire sales industry. But everybody needs a car. When you drive down the street, you see thousands and thousands of people using this product that the person responsible for selling it has a bad reputation for. So the product is not the problem. The money that needs to be spent in order to get the product isn't the problem. The problem is and has always been whether or not the person selling it is doing it with honor and integrity or not.
Mm-hmm.
So once I realized that, I was like, okay, so if I change whether or not I'm the person that's going after this sale for my needs and my own benefits into I'm going after this sale because you have a need, you're going to buy this product anyway. All I have to do is maintain my honor and integrity, make sure I'm giving you what you actually want, and you're going to buy this product, and then we can like each other after that. You can go on and tell other people about the great experience that you have, and other people that need this product can come to me to get it. Once I had that realization, I was like, I want to do that all the time. So I took that principle into every single job I've had since meeting Merrilee. And I
Mm-hmm.
tell you what, it has made a world of difference. I've sold phones. I sell manufactured products in the aerospace industry. I've sold handyman services. And, whatever the industry is or what I've worked in, the principle has always been the same. Somebody needs this product. They're trusting me to be the expert. So all I need to do is solve a problem and be honorable, and the
Mm-hmm.
rest will fall into place. I was like, this is the easiest thing to figure out in the world. But, when we allow things like selfishness and greed and, those kinds of things to detract us from the point of why we're here, then that's gets lost. So I want to make sure that, I surround myself with people like Merrilee that are of that vision and are able to represent Christ in everything they do, because ultimately that's how we represent Christ, right? We're here, working a job. Like, you might be a janitor, you might be a teacher, you might be a lawyer, you might be a doctor. But while you're in that space, if you're Christian, Jesus has a calling on your life to represent him. So how would he perform that job? Or how would he supervise that job? And when we start thinking like that, it changes the perspective of how we treat the people that we're doing business with. It changes the perspective of how we treat the people that we're loving in our families with.
Mhm.
And it changes the perspective of how we treat the strangers that we encounter every day, whether they're chewing gum walking down the street, sitting on a bench waiting for a bus, checking out your groceries in the grocery store. And that's what Merrilee brought to me. She gave me an awareness of the fact that no matter where I am or who I'm with, the Most High is always watching. And I'm responsible in every one of those interactions for how I behaved. So the hard part about that is, of course, we live in a culture where, the news has people every day doing things that hurt our feelings or are violent. There's crime. There's all these things out there that make us have this guard up to where we have to protect ourselves, and we can't be that to everybody. But how we choose not to be that to everybody should still be representative of Christ. If somebody is, uh, I guess, following you to an ATM, obviously that's a situation where you might need to have some self-defense. But in that moment, are you still able to treat that person with love and respect as you're walking up to the ATM? If if you're uncomfortable and you wind up having to call 911, are you still able to do it in a way that Jesus would do it? Or do you turn into somebody that's now judging that person because obviously they're in sin, and being able to have that filter and handle both situations is something I found not very many people can do. But when I met Marilee, I saw no matter where she was, who she was around, or what was going on, and she's been in some real situations, let me tell you. Um, but in each one of these situations, I watched her maintain grace in all of them. And I was like, I want to do that. And since then, I've met other people that operate the same way. I mean, some people sometimes, I mean, they get some of the worst experiences. They get catcalled while they're going to the office. They get totally on patronized in the business dealing when they're trying to sell a product or they're trying to acquire a product. There's all these different hangups that happen in our world, and you watch how people react when those things happen. And a lot of times they react with a retort. They react by, giving a snapback, a clapback, or all these different ways that, they kind of try to stick it to them too. But that's not what Jesus did at all. He walked to the cross with people spitting at him, with people throwing things at him. He was wearing a crown of thorns after he was beaten by people that he literally looked at and said, I love you. And then he got on the cross and with his last breath said, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. And it's like, I think that when we take his example into our everyday lives and we look at all these different situations and all the little nuances of the choices that we have between them, we have a responsibility to do that exact same thing. So even though I used my own life experiences to tell that story, they kind of make a point, because every one of these situations in my book, meeting a friend, going on a date, seeing somebody that you like, seeing somebody that you might not like, having a conversation with your children, like randomly after school about what their interests are. These are all normal conversations that every parent is going to have, that every boyfriend is going to have, that every husband is going to have, that every bachelor is going to have, that every bachelorette is going to have. But how you handle yourself in each one of those situations is either going to be representative of Christ or it's not. And now that I've discovered that we have a lot more ability to choose what we do in those moments than we actually give ourselves credit for, it's like I really want to share that with more people, because I can't tell you how many men and women I've met over the course of my life, and I'm 44, but there are so many adults that I have met that have had a relationship where they're like, ah, I didn't get that right. I wish I could get that one back. I wish I wish I could redo that. Like I didn't say the right thing there and there. And I really hurt somebody I didn't want to hurt, or I really offended somebody I really didn't want to offend. You know, but life doesn't allow us to go back in time. So what we can do, since we can't go back in time, is pick a moment like the one I had with Merrilee and decide from this point forward, I'm going to be different. And I'm not going to be different just because the church told me so. I'm not going to be different because my parents told me so. I'm not going to be different just because I heard that sermon on Sunday. I'm going to be different because I have a responsibility, not only in this relationship that I have with Jesus, but everybody that He's given me moment to moment, every single day, 365 days a year, for the rest of the time I'm drawing breath. If we make those choices from breath to breath, then we get to the point where in Joshua 24:15 it says, as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. But you have to choose for yourself this day. This day is every day. It's Monday, it's Tuesday, it's Wednesday, it's Thursday, it's Friday, it's Saturday, it's Sunday. And then rinse and repeat.
Okay, so thank you for sharing and showing us Mary Lee's impact in your life and how, she has changed your life, like totally changed your life. Now, in your book, Craig, you would refer to Mary Lee as royalty and a
Mhm,
life coach. Okay,
mhm.
what made that approach so uniquely powerful?
Well, that's actually biblical. So it says in the Bible that we are kings and priests. And I love the fact that this reference is made in God's word because what it did was it allowed me to take that verse and apply it to the people that we're dealing with. So even you, Jenny, you're Christian, you're royalty. And if I treat you like I would treat you if you were the Queen of England or the Queen of Spain or the Queen of the Philippines, maybe my conversation would be more respectful than some of the ones that I'm sure you've had in your life, in your experience. And once I realized that, I was like, wow, like this is a great concept. Now, I did have the help of the fact that Merrilee actually is royalty. She is a registered princess of Solana. I don't know how she got the documentation for that. She will have to be the one to answer how she did that and what she did. But when she showed me that she had documentation proving that she was royalty, I was like, that backs up a principle that I already had. I already had this perception of you and what your impact was. And now, because of this relationship, because of this friendship, I've been able to apply that to other people. Now, I guess the follow-up to that is I rededicated my life to Jesus in 2021. Excuse me, November 21st of 2021. And what happened that day was I made a new commitment to a faith I was already a part of because I've been Christian my whole life. But, you know, you have that moment of salvation when, well, for me, it was in high school. But, you also have that time that maybe you're not as close to the Lord as you want to be, right? Because you've gotten sidetracked by other things, the world, choices, situations, all kinds of other things. So I recognized that I needed to recommit. And when I did, I was like, now this concept of royalty that I applied to Merrilee and I started applying to the friends that I made now applies to everybody that claim of Jesus, right? Because he says that we're sons and heirs like him, as it says in Romans chapter 8. So if we're heirs like Jesus, then how we treat Jesus should be how we treat our brothers and sisters. Once I got a hold of that, I was like, wow. Now, granted, once you have that realization, once you center on that focus, you're going to start to notice that other people don't agree, right? They don't feel that way. They don't treat people that way. But just because they don't recognize that that's who you are and that's who they are, doesn't affect how you treat them, right? So this is a concept from Merrilee that really helped me put perspective on whose responsibility it is to maintain integrity and honor in any type of disagreement. And what her philosophy is, it's actually one of my favorite phrases that she has. She says, "You got to keep your side of the street clean." The other phrase that's actually in the book, because that one's not. Luke 6:45 is actually in the book. It says, "From the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks." And this is actually one of my favorite sayings of Merrilee. The other one that's didn't make it in the book that is one of my favorites is you got to keep your side of the street clean. So, from the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks refers to what's in your heart comes out of your mouth. So, when you're talking about treating people with respect, if somebody else is saying something that's offensive or they're degrading or defaming your character or whatever, you have one of two choices. You can either be silent and say nothing, right? And just let that go and let Jesus fight your battles. Or if you're going to choose to respond, you need to choose to respond in a respectful manner in order to show them respect and still represent Christ in how you're speaking to them. And that whole message changed my life because I was in sales for years. I'm used to people cussing me out. I'm used to people telling me off and telling me how far in a lake I can jump, right? And when that happens in the sales world, you either have to turn more aggressive to make the sale. Like, look, I get that you don't like salesmen, but here's a product, here's a price, and it's only available today. Do you want it or not? Right? That's the push. But being able to respond in those situations with grace now because the sale doesn't matter, the person does, right? They're the ones that have the need. They're going to get this product whether they get it from you or somebody else. And the difference between that is instead of telling them, "Hey, I get that you're mad, but I don't care. Here's the product, here's the deal. Do you want it or not?" which is really insensitive, really callous, right? But now you can change that to, "Hey, look, I get it. We don't have enough trust for you to feel comfortable with this right now. So tell you what I'm going to do. We know that you need the product. There are a lot of companies out there you could buy it from. But if I can earn your trust in this conversation, I'm going to tell you exactly what's in the product. I'm going to tell you exactly what the cost is. If there's competition out there and it's cheaper and it's a better fit for you, I'm going to tell you where that is so that you get what's best for you. But do me a favor, okay? If you like the experience and you believe that what I'm telling you is truth and you think someone else can benefit from the interaction we're having today, could you let them know who I am? Let them know where I am because I need to feed a family too. Is that fair? Now we're not having a conversation about the product and we're not pushing something on you that you don't need. Now I'm talking to you about why you're here. I
Mhm.
have to make sure that my interaction with you is representative of the Jesus I serve. So if I handle you understanding that you may not necessarily do the deal with me, there are a lot of other people you could do the deal with. Whoever that is, if they're a fit, great. But could you at least let people know that I'm here so that we can all win?
Mhm.
And now I'm respecting the fact that you have other choices. I'm respecting the fact that you have other options. And I'm telling you to do what's best for you or what you think is best for you with all of the information. It's a totally different experience. And I know that a lot of people don't get that because you've got these people that are super successful and the best salesman in the company and they have all these awards and all this money. But a lot of times the people that are in those positions got there because they stepped on people. And when your rise to the top is because you stepped on other people, then that affects how you're able to represent Christ because Jesus didn't step on people to be where he is. He served people to be where he is. And he told us that the greatest leadership is servanthood and humility. So if that's how we show love, then our example of that needs to follow into every industry that we serve in.
Mhm. So that's an interesting take on things. So Merrilee is a life coach. What do you think distinguishes a true life coach from the motivational speakers or influencers that we have today?
That's a great question. And it's funny because when I moved to California, I had never heard of the term life coach, had no idea what it was. And when she told me she was a life coach, I literally told her, "What's that?" And her explanation of it was, well, she's a person that invests in people. And she had this motto, this slogan, find yourself happy. And it was amazing. And I was like, okay, cool. So you basically teach people how to be happy. Awesome. But as far as motivational speakers, most that I had heard of had a conference. And, when you're on social media, when you're in the news, you hear about their conferences and you hear about the fees. So, one of them that I came across in 2015 had a conference. It was $4,000 to attend. I was like, I don't have $4,000 to spend in a weekend to begin with. But if I did, right, to spend that kind of money on something that's not an investment that's gonna, make money on its own or like a stock or something like that, it was totally alien to me. So one of the things that I noticed was different was while a lot of these other motivational speakers that are out there, they have channels, they have conferences, they have getaways. You can go get on a boat or a cruise and go sail around for a week and hear all of this great insight. And I don't know what happens after that. I've never been on one of those. But there's all these different perks to like being a part of it, but you have to pay to play. And the difference with Merrilee was, first of all, I didn't have to pay to play. And from the first conversation, she got involved in my actual life. Um, and like that's a real palpable difference when you're talking to somebody that wants to give you advice on how to live your life and somebody that actually gets involved in your life. And Marilee is one that got involved. So when I was talking to friends that I wanted to navigate better because we were having a disagreement, I'd call Marilee and say, "Hey, this is what's going on. This is how I'm thinking about approaching the situation. What do you think?" And then she would go, "That's breaking a rule." Now, I can't teach the game, but there are certain parts of the game, because that's copyrighted, that I can talk about because I have permission. One of the things that Marilee says is name calling. And that's a rule. And she has a list of rules. There's over 50 of them. But this particular one changed my life. And the reason being because when you get into a disagreement with somebody, one of the first things we typically do is say that, hey, like that was dumb. Like, why did you do that? That was not smart, right? A lot of times people will, actually call somebody a name and be like, wow, why would you do something so stupid? Like, how could you be so dumb? Right? Like, we have these ways of speaking. Now, my whole speech has been transformed by James chapter 3 in the last three. I don't even remember the names that people can actually call people because I don't talk like that. And I've made a commitment to the Lord not to do that. But I know that this is a rule that's commonly broken. And when you're in a disagreement because somebody did something that maybe wasn't that smart, or because they were scatterbrained at that moment, or maybe they had a blonde moment, whatever you want to call it, if you call them stupid in the moment that you're addressing the problem, that doesn't fix the problem. Not only does it not fix the problem, but it damages the relationship a lot longer than the problem exists. So, like for instance, if you're coming out of the grocery store and your significant other or your child leaves their wallet on the grocery counter, that would be one of those moments, right? And in that moment, now they've lost the wallet, all the money in it, have to, replace credit cards or whatnot if the wallet's not there when you go back for it. And immediately, most people are like, "Oh, why would you do that? Like, how could you? I told you to hold on." Like, all these different ways that we address the problem. But what you say in that moment to the person, your relationship with the person lasts longer than the problem. The wallet can be replaced in about 7 to 10 business days. The credit cards can be replaced and stopped within about 24 hours. Now, granted, mail time, whatever, they ship it back. That's an inconvenience and it's going to cost more money. But all of those problems and the, 10 days to get to DMV, call the banks, get everything replaced and whatnot, in order for you to do that. Or if you have to wait for a payday that's 2 weeks away, maybe it's a month, right? But that person, that child, you're in relationship with them for the rest of your life. That significant other, you're in the relationship with them for the rest of your relationship, right? So when you juxtapose the need for your compassion and your care for the problem that happens in a relationship, that's where a lot of people misstep. So this no name calling rule, I made a commitment as soon as I learned it. I'm never calling anybody a name again, no matter what they do, no matter what they did, in their hearing. Now, if I'm in the car and somebody cuts me off in traffic, they can't hear me. So I struggled with that for a while. I've gotten to a point now, finally, where, that's not really an issue anymore. But for a while it was because they couldn't hear me, right? So what does it matter what I say? But I have gotten to a point where I've corrected that. But the point is, if you eliminate no name calling from all of your conversations, no matter whether people are respectful to you or not, whether they have earned your respect or not, or even when they're like completely in sin and couldn't care less about how they're treating you, you know, it's not about them, it's about you. You're the one that knows Jesus. I'm the one that knows Jesus. So what I say, I'm still accountable to him regardless of what they do.
Mhm. So it's perfectly understandable that you can't, it just doesn't happen overnight. Like you've said, it's a process, it's a
Mhm.
transformation. Can you talk about the spiritual or emotional tests that you faced after beginning your transformation? Tell us about that.
That's a great question. So, with my spiritual transformation, the first thing that I realized is there's an altar for a reason. And most people miss the reason for the altar. Some people treat the altar like an excuse, some people treat the altar like a transformation point. And here's the difference. This same message is actually one that has been preached at my church that I've been attending. And senior leadership has been so good about this. But one of the things that I've noticed is, there's an altar for a reason. And most people miss the point of the altar. So some people use the altar as an excuse, and some people use the altar as a transformation point. And the difference is if you use the altar as an excuse, then you go to the altar, you say sorry, you go back out there and sin, and then come back a week later, say sorry at the altar again, and then go back into sin. And it's back and back and forth, and no change ever happens. And people just think that, that's all there is. And then there's people that see the altar as a transformation point because they realize that sin is something that they have an accountability for. And if they leave it at the altar and change their lifestyle after they leave the altar, then they don't have to do that sin anymore. And there are a lot of sins that fall in the transformation category where if you leave it at the altar, you don't have to go back to that anymore. And I feel like that is a really important message because we don't have to cuss. We don't have to go out there and fornicate all the time. We don't have to go out there and be a part of all of these different things that, the Bible says we're not supposed to, and Jesus lived an entire life never doing. Um, we actually have more choice in the matter than we think we do. And when we own up to that choice and we decide to have a different lifestyle, that's when real transformation happens. So, like for me, one of my vices was smoking. I had started smoking when I joined the military, and actually just before I joined the military in 2002. And every time I had a stressful situation, I didn't pray, I had a cigarette. And so after, 11, 12 years or so of smoking, a pack a week, actually probably closer to 2 packs a week, you know, that becomes a habit. And that habit is formed because of the choices I was making when I was stressed. But once I realized that I don't like the taste of cigarettes, I don't think anybody likes the taste of cigarettes. And you know how we know? Because when you go to a restaurant and you order your dinner, nobody in the history of food has ever asked them to dump an ashtray on their food and then serve it, right? So clearly you're not there for the flavor. But because of the choices that we make, that's the go-to that we have when certain situations come up, even though we don't like the flavor. Most of us don't even like the experience. I don't think smoker's cough is fun for anybody, and I'm positive emphysema isn't fun for anybody. But you make those choices because that's what you feel is your answer to whatever the situation is. Once you recognize that you can have a different answer, you can pray. You can talk to somebody that has this thing called wisdom and navigate that situation so it has a better outcome. Or you can ask the Holy Spirit for wisdom and he can give it to you directly and you can just simply have restoration in a situation. Um, there's always another alternative other than the vice and other than the sin. So I use that example because that's something that I was delivered from. Alcohol is another one. There are a lot of people that make excuses for drinking alcohol, but there are several places in the Bible that say that people that are in authority and lead in the spirit shouldn't drink. Proverbs 31 chapter 31 verse 1 through I want to say 4 to 8. It clearly says, "It is not for kings, O Lemuel, to drink, lest they forget the law and pervert the course of justice." I mean, how much clearer could you be? And yet there are still people that are like, "Oh yeah, it says that, but like it's the new year. Yeah, it says that, but it's my birthday." So they make excuses for something that, literally is a matter of just don't do that, right?
Mhm.
It's kind of like um I used to, back when I first was working with Merrilee, I used to tell people it's as easy as taking a day off from work. You don't feel good today, so you don't go in. So you don't get in the car, you don't drive to the office, you don't clock in, you don't turn on your computer. There's all these choices that happen in order for you to go to work that you decide not to do when you take a day off. It's the same thing with drinking. You got to have a plan to go somewhere there's alcohol, or you have to have a plan to go and get alcohol. The choice that you make to get up, get dressed, get showered, get in the car, drive down the street, turn this way at the traffic light, park in this parking lot, go to this grocery store, walk down that aisle, take that thing from that aisle, get to the checkout stand, put that checkout item in the bag, put that bag in the car, bring that bag in the car and drive home. Then put that bag after you get home, open the door, put it in the cabinet. Each one of those steps is a choice. There were like 20 of them. And at every single one of those choices, you could have turned back. You could have not gotten in the car. If you got to the grocery store, you could have not gone down that aisle. Or if you couldn't make the choice when you got down the aisle, when you got to the checkout counter and had to look at them checking it out, now you have somebody else seeing you do the thing that you're not supposed to do. And it's like, yeah, maybe don't put that one in the bag, right? You have all these different places that you could have made a different choice, and people don't realize that. But once I started like outlining all the steps it takes to get to a decision, I was like, wow, there's a lot of places I could have turned back. I don't need to
Mhm.
do that anymore. So that was how I got delivered from alcohol. And now, because I have, a message and a mission to show other people that deliverance is available, it's like that was something that I got delivered from. But whatever it is, there's a path to deliverance. And that
Mhm.
was why I wrote that chapter, because it starts in your appetites. In fact, one of the quotes from my book, I compare beets. I can't remember what page this is on, but I remember when I had this revelation, right? Because I can't stand beets. Like, beets are the worst food on the planet to me. So, anywhere that serves food, if beets are on the menu, nope. So, because of that, I don't have an appetite for beets, which means no matter where it's served, who's serving it, where it's found, it's never going to be appealing to me. And the revelation that I had is, what if we treated sin like the food that we hate, right? Because if I don't like beets, I'm never going to eat beets. And once I applied that to the vices that I wanted to get rid of, it was very easy for me to turn away from them. I don't like the taste of cigarettes. I don't like the taste of alcohol. I don't like these things as an appetite. So long before it becomes a thought, a desire, or an action, I'm already checked out. Like as soon as it's offered, that's a beat. No thanks. So that was, my path. And I feel like if more people were aware of how easy it is to make that exact same choice with the things they think they're struggling with when they realize that it's an appetite. And if you shift the appetite, you shift the whole process of decision making, then let's shift our appetites, right? Because right now, we are in a culture that is trying to create appetites for us. That is the reason why a lot of the media and advertising that's out there has the themes that it has. They are trying to create appetites. The Bible is also trying to create appetites, but those are holy ones. So let's just stick with those.
And it can be done. I mean, you're a perfect example. It may not be easy, and you may fall a few times along the way, but it can be done as long as you really decide on it. Now, Craig, in your book, you also talk about love doesn't hurt, right?
Right.
It's a theme early in your book. What did that revelation mean to you at the time?
Well, I kind of touched on this, but there is no there are no words for how powerful a revelation it is to recognize the fact that you're in control of the people that you hurt. And once you start making different choices with how you think, how you behave, and how you speak in ways that won't hurt the people that you care about, then all of a sudden you have relationships that start working out. One of the places that this happened was actually with one of my children. So, first of all, I love being a father. I have always wanted to be a father my entire life. Even when I was like in kindergarten, I was like, my dad is awesome. I can't wait to be one, right? Now, as a 6-year old, you have no idea what that means, right? It's not like I was trying to go on dates at 5, but at the same time, you understand the role because God is our Father because Jesus treats us like sons. He says that we are sons and heirs with Him. So, fatherhood is the whole premise for our entire faith. And I didn't know that when I was young, but as I started to come to terms with everything that's associated with the kingdom of heaven, it's literally fatherhood. We have a father in heaven who takes care of all of his children for all of their needs for all of time, right? So when I looked at this and I was like, he never hurts us. God never hurts us. He provides for us. He corrects us. He rebukes us. He admonishes us. He rewards us. He's faithful to us, but he never hurts us. So if he's able to have an all encompassing, omnipotent love that doesn't hurt, and our example of that, or our representative of that, while we're here on this earth, is under the two commandments Jesus said were the greatest ones: to love your God as your with all your heart, with all your soul, and all your mind, and to love your brother as yourself, or to love your neighbor as yourself. Then his version of love must look like the kind of love he wants us to have. So therefore, love doesn't hurt. So when Merrilee said it, I was like, where is that in the Bible? And then when I found it, I was like, okay, Merrilee's not only said it, she's living it. And in addition to that, the God I serve has made that the standard. So there's got to be a way to do it. Up until that point and that revelation, I thought there's no way you're going to get through any relationship without hurting somebody. And my time in the military showed me lots of ways that that can happen. I'll just put it that way. So, I didn't believe it was possible until I heard it and then I saw it in the word. And then I was like, okay, if that's possible, if that's actually humanly possible, what can I do to change me so that I can be a better representative of that?
Mhm.
And once I had that moment, everything in my life changed. It can be done. You actually can love without hurting people. And once I realized that it was possible, that's all I needed was the fact that it is possible. Then I started looking at the people that I love. I started looking at my parents. I started looking at my children. I started looking at my friends, my coworkers, my acquaintances, people that I wanted to be good to, and realized that if it's possible for me to have these interactions and these relationships with these people that I care about and never hurt them, that's the only way I want to treat them, is with something that's never going to hurt them. I want all of our conversations to be good to one another. Even if one of us needs correction, even if one of us needs rebuke, even if one of us is wrong, I still want that relationship to be cherished. I want that relationship to be representative of Jesus, because when Jesus sees us doing wrong, he doesn't treat us in a way that cuts the relationship. He treats us in a way to help us correct and come back to him and draw closer to him. And that's his definition of intimacy in the spirit, is no matter what you do, come to me, come to my presence, hear from me, do what I'm telling you, follow my plan, follow my will. And even when we talk to him, which of course is prayer, he says in First John 5, on chapter 5, verse 14 through 15, anything we ask, anything we ask according to his will, he hears us. And if we know that he hears us, whatever we ask, we know that we have the petitions that we have asked of him. So, reading this verse and understanding that love doesn't hurt brought me to this revelation that I've had reinforced several times at church. In fact, I've memorized this verse because of my church, because they repeat it so much. But the principle, once I grasped this, it literally changed everything. Um, because I came from an experience as a Christian where I was spending a lot of time begging for my prayers to be answered. There's a lot of things that I prayed for and had no idea why God was saying no, right? Which I'm sure a lot of people can relate to, right? You're asking for something and you have to wait for it, and then you keep waiting for it, and then sometimes the answer comes and sometimes it doesn't. But this verse, First John 5:14 through 15, says, anything we ask according to his will, he hears us. And if we know that he hears us, we know that we have the petitions that we have asked of him. So here's the question that came to me after reading that verse. What if all of my prayers could be answered? What if all of your prayers could be answered too? Two answers to that. One, they can if they're according to his will, which meant the prayers weren't the problem. What I was asking was the problem. If I ask something that's in his will, he's going to do his will, right? Because it's his will, it's perfect. And the second revelation that I had from that is, what if it's possible for me to be a part of other people's answered prayers because my being in that relationship at that time, in that interaction, is availing me to be part of the answer to their prayer? And once I realized that, I was like, then that means if I fix my motives, if I fix my intentions, I align my heart, my thoughts, my mind, and my behaviors all with his will, then he can use me to do that in every interaction. Now, I haven't gotten to the place where that's happened yet, but man, the process of working on that to make it to where, even though, Jenny, this is the first time we're meeting, right? But I'm praying internally that some part of this conversation will bless you. And, we just met. If I take that to, I'm going to have to go and get gas at some point this week. When I'm in the gas station and we have that exchange. Now, granted, there are some people out there that definitely reject the spirit, but for the ones that are willing to accept it, if I can be a part of an answered prayer just by how I hand them my change, how I handle myself at the pump, how I react when somebody, does something weird like cuts me off in traffic. Um, a while back, I think about maybe 2 years ago or so, every time I see a police car pulled off to the side of the road and their lights flashing, I shift my perspective from thinking that the person that's pulled over is a problem to praying for whoever's in the situation. I pray over their insurance being able to handle any damage if there's an accident. I pray over, their being able to get back to their families and whatever their plans were for that day, that they won't be ruined. I pray that if they have a job that requires that they clock in, that they don't get let go because they're being delayed, and it's like the straw that broke the camel's back on how how many times they've been late. I make sure that I pray over those things because we never know why they're in that situation. And if I align myself with God's will, maybe just me driving by, I can be a part of the answer to something that they're praying for. We never know. There was a point where I had this moment where the Holy Spirit whispered something to me that I've carried with me ever. And that is that we're all a part of someone else's miracle. And the moment that I had this whispering of the Holy Spirit, I started looking at all the times that I pray, all the times that other people pray with me, all the times that I pray with other people. And a lot of those people are believing for miracles. And we're asking God for them. We're adding our faith, hoping that these things happen for them. But what if with a small shift in perspective, we're able to actually be a part of the answer. And what if the only difference between hoping for that thing to happen and knowing that that thing is going to happen is whether or not you submitted and surrendered to his will? Once I had that revelation, every single one of my conversations became, I want to be a part of the miracle. No matter how this person is treating me, I want to be a part of the testimony. No matter how this situation is affecting me, I want to be a part of the deliverance. No matter how this is happening, I want to make sure I'm a part of the healing. And when we focus on being a part of the healing, a part of the restoration, a part of the deliverance, a part of the positive outcome, because Romans 8:28 says, all things are working to the good of those who are called according to his purpose. So if Romans 8:28 says that everything works out for the good, then if you're going to be a part of the end, then you're going to be a part of the good, which means no matter how bad it is right now, at some point it works out. Let's be a part of the when it works out. I mean, like once I grasped this concept, I was like, wow, no matter how negative anything is, no matter how bad a situation is, it's going to turn for the good at some point. So
That,
let's be a part of that.
yeah, that's very positive. And you know what, Craig? I think your book is it's probably the best way for you to be a part of somebody else's miracle because you'll get to, touch other people's lives through your book. Let's talk about your journey as an author this time.
Mhm.
Okay. How long did it take you to complete your book?
Well, first of all, let's start with the fact that I tried to put one of my best friends in a book. So that took a while. And one of the things I guess one of my gifts is encapsulating people. So when I try to share experiences that I have with people that other people haven't met, I try to do it in a way where even though they weren't there, they can still appreciate who that person is and, have an understanding as if they actually met that person. And I get that from my family actually because my grandmother passed away when I was 25. My children never had a chance to meet her, but she was probably one of the sweetest people I've ever known in my entire life. She was the type of person where, the bad kids in the neighborhood would come over for Thanksgiving dinner and ask if they could have some. The troubled kids that give everybody else problems would stop by and make sure my grandmother was okay. And since I had a firsthand witness of what that looked like, I was like, oh wow, like that's amazing when like people tell you that, they got all this other stuff going on over here, but how are you doing? Like, what do you need? Kind of thing. And that just it really made an impact on me. So it's my author journey, as far as Merrilee is concerned, was trying to take this friendship that I valued so highly and write a book that would help other people recognize when they have people like that in their lives and to value those friendships in ways that they don't lose them. Um, there's nothing like losing a good friend over a bad deal or losing a good friend over a bad situation. And I mean, my whole life I've been around people that have made those choices and, had to live with the consequences. And a lot of times people become kind of numb after that because they know that they're the reason why this person is no longer in their lives. But they either become kind of callous to it, where it's like, yeah, that happened, but it wasn't that bad. There's other friends that they'll make, or there's other places that they'll go. There's other things that they'll do. Or they take that with this sense of regret, where it's like, they never really get over that because that was like the best friend that they had like their entire childhood or something like that. And when these epic fallouts happen in these relationships, they affect people. This is where trauma comes from. This is why people need therapy, right? And the thing that I guess I realized a long time ago was that if we addressed what happened in the relationship and created restoration in those relationships, then all of the things we do to medicate the problem after the fact wouldn't be necessary. So what I mean by that is if you have a parent that has a child that runs away, and the child ran away because the relationship was damaged and they don't want to talk to him anymore, and they go for like 10, 15, 20 years of absence, right? And they don't get to talk to this child. Well, going to therapy is going to have a totally different effect than if a child comes home. Is, a lot of times these relationships get damaged, and then we have to medicate the problem. And they medicate the problem by going to therapy and talking to all these other people about how to deal with the emotions of this broken relationship. And one of the things I realized is, what if they just fix the relationship? If that child that you haven't talked to for 20 years comes home, then you probably wouldn't need therapy. If you're able to bring reconciliation, which it says in the Bible you have access to, the ministry of reconciliation, and you use that to heal the relationship, and you're able to restore the love, then you don't have to medicate the problem because the relationship is fixed. A lot of the things that we attribute to trauma can literally be addressed in healing if we fix the relationships that caused the trauma. And I had this revelation a long time ago, but it's literally affected everything that I do and all the people that I meet. Um, because that's how Jesus operated. Jesus didn't walk around with, appointments for people to go see a specialist about a problem. He just healed them in the moment. He said, "Go and sin no more." He said, "You are healed. Pick up your mat and walk." And the Holy Spirit does those things where healing is needed. But when we're talking about emotional damage that happens in relationships, that's usually a conversation, and it involves, for the most part, two things: forgiveness, because a lot of people say they forgive, but they hold on to a little bit of it. And what unforgiveness sounds like is, I forgive you, but I'm never going to forget. That's
Mhm.
not how Jesus operated. In fact, he said he's going to cast your sin as far as the east is from the west when he forgives you. So being able to let go of somebody's past wrongs is probably one of the key elements to being able to reach a point where you can have healing. The other thing is, we really have to be intentional about what our version of love is. 1 Corinthians 13:4 doesn't say anything about being happy. It doesn't say anything about having your needs met. It doesn't even mention self-care, right? And there's a reason for that, because that's not loving the way God intended for us to love. Loving the way God intended for us to love involves servanthood, sacrifice, and understanding. There's this word that I used to love from the 80s. I don't know if they use it anymore because they have all these new terms for, how people love in relationships, but I loved this word, devotion. And devotion is something that you do regardless of the other person because you're devoted. When
Mhm.
you love like Jesus, sometimes you got to reach into some dark places and bring the light. And a lot of times, one of the reasons why we're willing to repent is because Jesus pulled us out of those dark places and saved us and gave his life for us in the first place, right? So I don't know where you were when you got saved, but I know where I was. I was friendless. I was looking for acceptance. I wasn't getting it anywhere. So
Yeah.
God used my best friend in high school to show me an example of that when I got saved. He drove to my house. He walked up to my door. He rang the doorbell until I came to answer. He didn't stop at one ring. He made sure that I came to the door. And when I opened the door, he said, "You're coming with me." And I was like, "Yeah, I told you I was going to go. Let's go."
Mhm.
And, that whole experience brings so much light now to what love really looks like, because sometimes it's what you got to do. 1 Corinthians 13:4 through 10 says, "Love is patient, love is kind, it keeps no record of wrongs." There's no expiration date on those things. It's not kind when it feels good and then mean because somebody said something you didn't like, or because they spent money that you agreed you weren't going to spend, or because they did any of the other things that you don't like in a relationship. It says love is kind, period. Love is patient, period. It keeps no record of wrongs,
Mhm.
period. It is not self seeking, period. And these are eternal things, because when God used uh, 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 a term to describe himself, this is what he used to describe himself. He said he is love. And since God is eternal, therefore love is eternal, which means we have to start learning and appreciating and treating our love like it's an eternal thing, not something that, is only for this set amount of time or only this season. And then when the season changes, we don't have to do that anymore. And I think that as Christians, we will have a much longer lasting impact when more of us embrace this concept. Because I listen to the news and I watch our culture, and there's so much going on in the news. My heart breaks for so many situations that are going on right now, in so many ways that we're just being tried and having our faith tried. But at the end of the day, how are we showing up? When we're looking at each other and judging one another every other post or every other comment or every other news report or every other interview, and saying, who are the real Christians and who are the fake Christians, and who's really, bringing the word of the Lord and who's pretending to be the word of the Lord. It's like, okay, well, Paul said in the Bible that that wasn't his concern. His concern was that the message of the gospel was preached, regardless of which mouth it came from. So if we're living apostles read of men, and everything that we say is going to be representative of the gospel, then maybe we should look past the situations that are temporary and start looking to eternity and how we represent that.
So the making of the book really like spanned a great number of years of your life, like because it started you had your grandmother as an inspiration, and then your best friend, and then of course there's Merrilee, right? So the book has been out for not really long yet, but I'm sure that a lot of people have started to read it or have finished reading it. What's the best feedback or review that you've received about your book?
Honestly, that it's a powerful story. And there is no bigger compliment to me than that, because one of the things that I have really held on to ever since coming to California, and this is actually a philosophy that I brought to California with me, was that people are amazing. And you know, that concept that people are amazing is not tied to status, and it's not tied to, position or where they are in life. There are regular, normal, everyday people walking around that you and I meet every single day in the office, in the grocery store, on the street, that are absolutely hands down some of the most amazing people you could ever interact with. And, just because they're not in the spotlight or in the media or whatever doesn't change how amazing they are. And they don't have to have, some extravagant skill like singing or acting or playing an instrument in order to be amazing. There are some people that are just amazing at listening. There are some people that are just amazing at showing compassion. There are some people that are just amazing at nurturing. There are some people just amazing at being funny. Like, they're not even trying to be funny. They just are funny because, when they get up and they get dressed and they go to an office, somewhere between them waking up and getting to the office, they're going to trip over something and laugh about it in a way that's going to make everybody around them laugh. Like, And you wouldn't think that that's an amazing skill until you start to realize that everybody's going to trip at some point in their lives. But how many of us can laugh at it? Right? There's a lot of people that could ruin their day. There's a lot of people that, if they trip on something, break a bone, like that could totally change the whole next 6 to 8 weeks or whatever to heal. And, it could really affect a lot of people. But for this kind of person, when they trip, they laugh, everybody around them laughs, and everybody that hears the story afterwards or sees the video on YouTube is gonna laugh. That's a gift. That's a gift. So I really embrace this, and I try to look for those people that are just going to be amazing and want to treat other people in amazing ways, and they don't have an angle behind that. Because there are some people that are amazing because they're called to be amazing. Like they have a position that demands that they be amazing. Like I don't know, the president of the United States. If you're the president and you're on camera for however long you're talking in front of that camera, you kind of got to be amazing. If you're not, there will be news reports later, right? So, but not everybody's in that position. What about the people that are just amazing, sweeping the floors at your office building, or, changing your tires at the local body shop? And I look for those people everywhere I am, because the ones that recognize the God that is in them, and that Jesus is an eternal, eternal impact for all of us. And the same people that we're walking past on the streets every day, or, as we pass going to the office, or in the Costco line, or shopping for Christmas presents because it's Christmas season, those same people are going to be our neighbors in the new heaven and the new earth. Same faces, different bodies, obviously, because we're going to have our glorified bodies, but same people, right? Jenny, you and I could wind up neighbors in heaven talking about all the stuff we did here on earth, with like Elijah and Moses next to us going, yeah, we were watching. That was a good moment. Or, hey, we were watching. You didn't handle that so well, but we could laugh about it now, right? Like, and I think we need to start treating people like we have an understanding of this eternity that we're hoping for, because it's not going anywhere. And everything that we say, do, and think is actually being recorded by angels, like David said, like you knew all of my days and they're recorded in your book of life. So if angels are recording what we're doing and saying, and it's going to come up again, maybe we should recognize that sooner and start treating other people around us like that's our responsibility.
And through your book, I mean, being told how powerful of a story it is, that must have been very amazing for you as well, right? So,
Well, yeah, because I considered myself to be one of those ordinary people,
mhm.
like I'm one of those people that, happen to be in the grocery store, happen to be in the line, happen to have written a book, right? And this amazing opportunity to write a book was given to me, but
Mhm.
I'm that voice because I've been that person my whole life. You know what I mean? So here, you've got somebody that is an everyday person that now has a story that's talking about other everyday people that have been affected by that story, and other people beyond that have been affected by that story. So we're all like in this giant responsibility of affecting everybody else's life, and how we show up is going to reflect how we represented Jesus while we were here, because that's what he did.
Mhm.
He
So,
showed up in an unassumptive form in a manger,
mhm.
and then lived his entire life for our benefit so he could die on the cross, take our sins, and give us eternal life. But the people that he walked into, they were regular, ordinary people. He picked a couple of fishermen and built a church off of that. I mean, so
Yeah.
I really think that, embracing this is important. And Merrilee was one of the first friends that I made in California that reached into my life and started to show me that, I can literally live my entire life treating people the way she treats people. And that led me to have a deeper understanding of my faith and the Jesus that I serve. So when I committed my life to Christ again, everything that's happened since then has been a shift in perspective from the way I was treating Merrilee to how I treat my faith. And then obviously, because now my relationship is much deeper with the Lord, now that I don't see him as that God way out there, but somebody that's actually interacting with me, has given me his spirit that I have access to every single day, that I can affect the natural world around me with spiritual things. It's a totally different world. But a lot of that is, of course, going to be talked about in my follow-up book to this one.
Mhm. Okay, so as an author, what advice would you give to someone else or another writer who is just working on their first book?
So writing is a gift. And if you're writing your first book, I do have some friends that are writing their first books, but here's the advice that I would give. Take your writing, whatever it is, whatever the topic is, and turn it into a conversation. If you were telling the person what it is that you're writing, how long would they want to sit and listen to it? That's how I wrote this book. I wrote this book with an image. In fact, if you look at the book cover for my book, this picture I chose because I wanted people that read my book to have an impression of Merrilee as if they saw her in a Starbucks, had no idea who she was, a complete stranger, and based on how she was sitting and who she is, were like, huh, I kind of want to go and introduce myself to her. Like, who
Mhm.
is that? Like, she seems cool. And say, hi, my name is. Everything that happens after hi, my name is representative of everything that we've talked about in this interview. So this picture is actually a picture that I chose based on that impression. And my advice to a new writer is to pick something like that, right? Because as a first time writer, people don't know who you are.
Mhm.
It's literally like an introduction while you're waiting in line at the grocery store. You've got, your whatever it is that you buy. For me, I buy a lot of fish. So I definitely like to get salmon and steaks and so forth. So you've got, like a salmon and two steaks on the checkout counter, and the person behind you has, one bag of chips. Are you the kind of person in telling your story that when you turn to that person and start talking to them about it, are they going to want to listen, or are they going to be like, hey, could you hurry up, sir? And I was definitely the one where people used to say, okay, can you hurry up, sir? So I took somebody else that made an impression on me, and I was like, wow, like, what if other people are walking around with friendships like this one? What can I say to help prevent them from mishandling them? And then I wrote my book.
Okay, that's a very good advice to those who are just starting their publishing journey. And you said that you're working on another book. Am I right?
Yes.
Tell
So
us a
my
little bit
follow
about
up,
that.
sure. So my next book is called Jesus Saves. And I'm about 3 chapters into it. I plan on having it finished sometime between second and third quarter next year. But publishing schedules can be a little longer, so I'm not sure if it will be released at the same time or if it will be after that. But everything that's happened since my rededication to Christ in 2021 will be in
Ooh,
that book.
that's
I have seen miracles. I have seen healings. I have seen God move in more ways in the last 4 years than I could even begin to tell you in one interview. So, I'm going to write this book so people can see that these things are real. Each one of the spiritual gifts is real. And if you go to a place that has the candlestick lit, and you go to a place that is has the Holy Ghost and is is anointed, you can see some of the same experiences that I have seen in the last 4 years. And I can't wait to share those experiences with people, because I think that's the other thing is a lot of people really just don't realize how big a God we serve. And because the world that we are in, the culture that we are in, has kind of muted a lot of his ability to affect our lives. A lot of people just really aren't aware, but every one of the spiritual gifts is alive and well today. And miracles still happen, healing still happen, reconciliation still happen, deliverances happen. There are things that I have seen people walk away from that, I mean, well, you'll have to wait for my book, but
right. We're looking forward to that. So we can't wait for your next book to be out, and hopefully we get to do another one of these interviews. So as we wrap up, Craig, I know we've covered a lot of ground. Please invite our viewers and listeners to connect with you through your website or social media accounts, and then let them know where they can get a copy of your book.
Absolutely. So, I do have a website that my publisher Westbow is currently working on that hopefully will be completed. So that should be released hopefully first quarter of 2026. In the meantime, you can reach me on Facebook under my name, Craig Lipscomb. I'm the only person with this face. And you can also reach me on Instagram, and I do have a TikTok as well as a YouTube all under my name. And my face is literally my calling card because what I used to say back when I first met Merrilee was, I'm just a face in the crowd. And now, I'm a face in the crowd with a story. So, yes, and I'm the only person I know that actually has my real cell phone number on my social media. So yes, you can actually call me, you can actually text me. Um, I don't know how long I'll be able to do that, but at least for the time being, so would
So,
I.
Craig, a lot of realizations, a lot of learnings in this conversation. It's very moving and very insightful. Thank you so much, Craig, for sharing your story with us. Your book has shown us how the right guidance and meaningful friendships can inspire growth, faith, and purpose in our lives. So, of course, we also would like to thank our viewers and our listeners for tuning in. And don't forget to get a copy of Craig's book, Knowing Merrilee, My Life with a Princess by Craig E. Lipscomb, available in softcover, hardcover, and ebook. You can buy it from Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com, Westboro Press online bookstore, and of course, other resellers. I hope you all enjoyed today's episode. We learned a lot today. Thank you so much, Greg, for, selflessly sharing your time with us and talking to us about your book.
Thank you so much. And one little giveaway I would like to do because this is, a wonderful interview. I'm so thankful for the opportunity. So I did come prepared to give a free sample of my audio book, the version of this book for anybody that is interested. This is the QR code. They are more than welcome to scan this and get a free sample of my audiobook. You can hear me tell the story. And, I did this because I wanted people to really hear what it's like to meet Merrily for the first time, to really hear what it's like to have that introduction. So, right from the first line of my audiobook, it's like we're sitting down for coffee and I'm telling you about my friend, and then we go 168 pages in a conversation.
Thank you so much, Craig, for sharing that with us.
Absolutely. And I just want to say thank you to the viewers and the listeners that have come to enjoy my story. I hope that my story will inspire you to appreciate and be part of other people's stories as well. God bless.
Thank you, Craig. Thanks, everyone. Until the next episode.